Good evening and welcome to this presentation evening on the post-18 options that are available. I'd like to welcome our speakers tonight. So we have with us Kate Lovelace, our careers leader, David Ritchie, our independent careers advisor, and I'm really pleased that we are joined by one of our Year 13 students, Rohan, who's a member of our SSLT and who's going to give you his personal perspective on applying to both degree apprenticeships and to university. So this evening we are aiming to cover quite a bit. Throughout this presentation you'll hear from different people who are experts in their field and can help advise students and parents on all the different roles and routes that are available post A-level. We'll be monitoring the chat function, as I've said as well, so please do post any questions that you have in there and we'll be able to answer them. I've also got some pauses throughout this evening's presentation so we can discuss either the apprenticeship route or the UCAS process, and again at the very end. So this evening is all about managing the processes post A-level. I make no apology of the fact that even before sixth form started, I was talking to students and their parents about choosing the right A-level choices. And now we are 6 months into year 12. Now is the time to really start thinking about and acting upon decisions and choices for students to go and be deciding what it is they want to do once they leave CGS. And there are a range of different options available, and tonight we're going to be exploring those options. This is one of the things that I say to all the students, that really there are 5 options available, of which one is to do nothing, which is a discussion for you to have at home with your son and daughter. But my options for students are to get a job, take a gap year, do an apprenticeship scheme, or go to university. Every year we have students who take on a variety of those different routes, and all that information we discuss in school, but also we have presenters coming in to talk about those different options and routes as well. And one of the ways we do that is through the SX lecture program, which students have every Tuesday. And these are just some of the examples of the presenters we've had so far this year. We're very lucky to have a really strong alumni network at CGS. So we've had Ellie coming in from Allspring Media to tell us about her career so far. She went to university and then she talked about the jobs that she does. Heather came in from Jaguar Land Rover, a fascinating presentation to year 12. And again, she talked about the degree that she did and then the engineering route that she took at Jaguar Land Rover, but she also talked about the degree apprenticeships that they have there as well. Just last week we had Ayush, who left in 2023, come back, and he is doing a degree apprenticeship at the Bank of England, and he was joined by Charlotte, who left 10 years previously, who actually went the graduate route into becoming a quantity surveyor and then a project manager. So students really are being exposed to a range of different routes that are available to them post CGS. And today's talk was from Hilary from the University of Portsmouth, and she talked about the two-pronged approach of applying to both university and degree apprenticeships. So there's lots of information coming students' way, and all the information from the SX program is put onto the Unifor profiles of students, so they can access all the PowerPoints and all the information there for them. A quick talk about apprenticeship levels then first, and then I'll hand over to David. The main thing I want to mention from this slide is the different levels that are available to apprenticeship schemes. So students have already done level 2 and they're now doing their level 3 or their A-levels. Most of our students progress on to level 4 or above apprenticeships. So degree apprenticeships, as you can see, are level 6 and 7. But that's not all the case, and different companies offer different routes. So it's not a one fit level for everybody. And some of our students have gone on to do a level 3 apprenticeship scheme for 1 year, and then they progress onwards and upwards throughout different ones. So I just think that's really important to put that out now. That whilst we talk about degree apprenticeships, not all apprenticeships are degree apprenticeships straight away, and there are different levels throughout. So that was that one for you. And some of the places we've had our students go on to, we had Joe go to RSM recently. We had Ollie go off to Morrison's, Sean off to JP Morgan, and these students have come back and spoken at different events. Some of our alumni, the Har visit at Dyson, Joe at Microsoft, Siobhan at Vodafone, and these are just some of the places that we have students applying to all the time. And Rohan's going to talk about a little bit later on about the apprenticeship schemes that he has applied to this year. So I'm going to hand over to David, our Independent Careers Advisor, who's going to talk all about the apprenticeship route.
Thank you. Yeah, could you flip the slide, please? Thank you. So it may be worth saying just at the get-go that the context of this chunk of the slides is still about higher education. It's not about a lower level qualification, although, as Mr. Westcombe said, it could be as a stepping stone route back up to a degree apprenticeship. But this is just a different way of acquiring the same qualification, but with added value, and I'll talk about what that added value looks like in a minute. I think possibly also worth saying, and Rohan will actually illustrate this way better than I will, that what we're always saying to students is to follow a twin track approach, not a single track approach. It's too risky. Looking at a UCAS application and a degree apprenticeship or other apprenticeship applications in tandem is just a sensible safety net. So yeah, next one, please. I'm not going to say too much about this slide. It's just a stack of statistics. In a nutshell, what it's saying is that the apprenticeship sector is growing and the higher level 6s and 7s apprenticeships is growing faster than the rest of them. It's actually interesting that being that it's National Apprenticeship Week this week, there are politicians and others queuing up to speak on one platform or the other, all saying how positive it is. And it is. It's really good to hear. This slide, again, is just the context of my section of this presentation about higher national diplomas, higher national certificates, foundation degrees, bachelor's and master's degrees, rather than the other level 3 apprenticeships. And I say that's a picture of no compromise, coming back to what I said previously about it being this acquiring a degree, but in a different context rather than just a full-on uni experience. The degrees that students are opting into for their degree apprenticeships are the same products that are available on UCAS. And that's just probably worth getting that statement made clearly before we start. Yep, next, please. And all universities are at it. And I deliberately picked these 6 because you'll notice that they are all Russell Group universities. And it doesn't really matter what they're doing, but there's a whole range of science, business, computer, management, health, engineering at Newcastle, Nottingham, Exeter, UCL, Leeds, Birmingham, and I could have picked dozens of others. Every university sector is getting a hold of this because they can see the net value both ways to their own learning programs and that the learning impacts positively in the workplace. Yeah, next, please. So the next few just can be whizzed through. This is the civil service fast track apprenticeship scheme across a whole number of different areas: financial, business, commercial, economic, analytical data, and so many. Engineering ones, I guess, are the more traditional ones. That's kind of how it all kicked off, telecoms engineering originally. But yeah, next. Here we have a whole bunch of financial ones. Now, in reality, I think the financial apprenticeships have probably now outstripped almost every other sector in terms of opportunity, but also maybe just worth saying, and this is a bit of a beware statement, most degree apprenticeships are what you see. It's a degree and an apprenticeship. There are some financial ones that appear to be offering what I would call a professional apprenticeship. And I would think twice about going down that road specifically, because it's a professional qualification, but not necessarily with the degree. Now, that's fine if you want to stay in the sector, but if you want to branch out of that sector into another graduate profession 5-10 years down the track, actually, you haven't got a degree. So be cautious. Yeah, next, thank you. Marketing degree apprenticeships, and I've used the Rolls-Royce slide deliberately to make 2 points. One is, of course, marketing and digital degree apprenticeships, but also traditionally you might target Rolls-Royce for an engineering apprenticeship, which of course you could. But fundamentally, it's a business like all other businesses, and they have requirements for marketing, digital, financial, HR, all of which they run with apprenticeships. So don't don't limit yourself to target businesses. Just recognize that all businesses do these things. Yeah, next, please. Solicitor apprenticeships, teaching apprenticeships, and coming along this September will be medical apprenticeships. Not the framework, the framework to all intents and purposes. It exists. Simply what has to happen is that NHS trusts have to pick up the apprenticeship framework and run with it. Well, that remains to be seen whether that happens, but just to recognize we are talking at an extreme elite end of learning. And yeah, you can do it through there too. Yeah, next, thank you. And that's just traditional engineering. And next one, please. And then we get into it. Right, so this is an important slide because as I said at the outset, this is an alternative way of acquiring a degree. And all the students that I speak to, well, I say students, all the apprentices to who I speak to, they come back saying the same thing. And what they're saying isn't, oh gosh, how much money I'm earning, which of course is significant. It can be 25 to 30,000 pounds a year. Well, that's a lot of money over 4 years, but they're not saying that. And furthermore, they're not saying, you wouldn't believe my employer is also paying the thick end of 9.5, nearly 10 grand a year for my tuition fees. Well, they're not saying that either. The common theme across every apprentice in every sector is that they are simply flabbergasted at the level of responsibility they are given. They are doing graduate level jobs and they're 18 and 19-year-olds. They are supported, of course they are, but the responsibility and the workload is genuinely extremely impressive. And that's the story that comes back time and time again. So the business sees this as an advantage for them to be able to take a young person, mold them and develop them into a graduate career. But the young people are getting a degree. They're getting a professional qualification. They're debt-free. Their bank balance can be significant. But the overarching thing is that they have a skill set that you simply can't buy. You take a graduate after a 4-year degree and a degree apprentice after a 4-year degree apprenticeship, and they are different animals completely. Yeah, next slide, please. And again. And this is where it all starts to kick off, because I've talked about endlessly the advantages to date, but I wish it was a straightforward process. It kind of isn't. So yeah, next, please. Let's just be clear who might be going for these. Someone who wants a degree, someone in addition who wants professional accreditation, someone who actually understands that their learning style is best served by having an academic learning being applied in the workplace, and then being able to take the workplace learning and to see the sense of their academic learning. So it's a more applied model. But actually, my fourth bullet point is the kicker. Without a clear career goal, at least for the next perhaps 5 to 10 years, it is incredibly difficult to even start the process of thinking about a degree apprenticeship, because of course, fundamentally, what a year 13 student will be doing is applying for a job, a graduate level job, albeit at the start of that journey. So having a career goal is crucial, but I recognize it's difficult. And that's why still the majority of students will choose an undergraduate route, because they're nowhere near ready to make that choice. And you know, that's absolutely fine. And my, yep, there we go. Just the last point is kind of talking about the pressure. Clearly, we're now talking about young people acquiring the same degree in a different format. There's also a requirement to do a full-time job. And that takes time management, but it also takes a mindset that says, I thrive on pressure. So it's not an easy route. It's just an extremely valuable route. Yeah, next, please. Complex it is. Applying through UCAS is a relatively straightforward process. Applying for a degree apprenticeship is just starkly the opposite. No two companies do the same thing. So there is no UCAS model whatsoever. And those 5 bullet points are kind of the extreme end, I suppose, but the large employers are all doing that. A 5-stage process, interviews, videos, assessment centers, psychometric tests, a whole bunch of stuff. So it can go on for a long time, and I think you'll hear more from Rohan on that subject, so I'll say no more about that, but also just to recognise that if you've got 5 applications in Train, and there's 5 parts per application, that's a lot of processes being juggled simultaneously. Yeah, next, please. So yeah, just kind of wrapping up what I've said before, the UCAS application, single, centralised, straightforward and structured, a degree apprenticeship simply, next slide, isn't. And that's it. Now, in addition to that kind of negative perspective, this just reinforces, if you like, the lawless chaosness of the whole thing. This lot of bullet points is what is being used to seek out placements, apprenticeships, instead of oneucas.com. It's just insanity. But again, the benefits are absolutely worth that pain, if you like. It's job seeking. It's looking in the job market, and looking for jobs in the job market is not a straightforward process. But if I'm here to help anybody in the school, I would argue that I'm kind of here to help those who want to navigate this chaos. And I'm very, very happy to help everybody navigate that process as the weeks and months and evolve. Yeah, thanks. Next, please. The next 2 or 3 slides are just illustrative of what you get to when you have clicked on some of those hyperlinks. So yeah, that's I forget the name of that particular website. Oh gosh, doesn't matter. Next one. I rate my apprenticeship. That's what it was. Yeah, not going to uni. And then the next one is the government website. There's a whole heap more. You saw about 11 of them. They all fundamentally require the same information. This is me. This is where I live. This is the sector I'm interested in. This is the level of degree the apprenticeship I'm looking for. Set the notifications to say, here's my phone number. Here's my email address. And as a new placement lands on the system, then you'll get a notification. Yeah, next, please. I think this may be my last slide. Just saying that other than the information coming into school and coming through the emails from Mrs. Lovelace, there is shows, one coming up in March, the big one in London at Excel. Just so many routes where that information comes through from. Thanks, and I will be happy to field questions later on down the line. Thank you. And now Mrs. Lovelace, I think, is going to pick up from there.
Thank you, David. So this slide here just shows the recent students, the destinations where they have gone, and it shows you where we have the information of where they're actually doing their degree as well. So you'll see that IUge, the Bank of England, is doing his with the University of Kent. UBS is with Exeter, Rolls-Royce is with Warwick, Vodafone that Siobhan is doing is with Lancaster University. So they are all over the country. And just one point to go back to that David mentioned with all those websites as well, any students that come to see me or David, you know, we start recommending, if you're interested in this pathway, register now, start looking now at the ones that are live at the moment and start making a log so that you can see the ones that you like, see what when they're opening, when they're closing, look at what they're looking for and so on, and start building up that information now. If we could go to the next slide, it is National Apprenticeship Week this week, so we have put together a video to make everyone in the school aware of this pathway as an option. So these are 4 former students who've all sort of just given everybody an insight into their sort of roles at the moment and how they're breaking up their day. Some of them are getting 1 day a week with their study, some might have a week at certain times, some are online, some are going down in person to their university. It's all very blended and very mixed. So they're all sort of giving an insight to the students of how their degree apprenticeships are working. So that's been really interesting and a great positive feedback from everybody with this video today. So that's showing in Tutor Time this week for everybody to build that awareness. And I think now we can just hand over to Rohan, who will just go through what he's done with his applications.
So can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so this is kind of about my experience with the apprenticeship application. So the application itself is pretty straightforward. It does require some preparation, so that usually tends to be creating a CV, cover letters, and just a little bit of information about yourself, just basic information like where you live, your ethnicities, your parents, what sort of sectors your parents work in, tax brackets, stuff like that. Usually most people get through this round. The second stage may include a video interview, aptitude testing, or situational judgment testing. So this is a slightly weird round. The video interview doesn't actually sort of consist of someone there speaking to you and asking you questions. Most of the time, it's like a high view type of interview that you have to do. So questions will pop up in front of you on your screen, and you've got sort of a minute to a minute and a half to prepare your answer, and usually a minute to 2 minutes to say what you have to say to the question, which can be quite challenging. But with quite a lot of practice, you get used to it, and it becomes quite easy because most of the questions are similar for each firm that you're applying to. Aptitude testing is another thing that they use. So that's just really testing your basic logical, numerical thinking skills and verbal reasoning. A lot of the time, the numerical thinking questions are timed, but the verbal reasoning ones are more easy. So for example, with Deloitte, they had the numerical reasoning, which is basic sort of, analyzing data and analyzing data and just non-verbal reasoning. Then the written assessments were slightly different. So they gave you 7 resources that you had to use. So it might be a voicemail or an email or spreadsheets, data spreadsheets like cash flow reports and profit and loss sheets that you kind of have to use to speak to clients. They give you a hypothetical situation that you have to do, which is a really interesting way of looking about it. But some firms do it differently. And like I said before, with practice, you get much better at them. Timing is tough, so I'd recommend doing the practice test beforehand. And the situational judgment testing is basically them trying to see how you'd place priorities and how you would react in a certain situation. So sometimes in the video interview, they'll ask you, tell us about a time where you've done this. So my one was, tell us about a time where you've had conflict in a team that you're working in, and what did you do to try resolve that conflict? So they're quite niche questions, but it really depends on what apprenticeship you're applying for. What I did to prepare beforehand was go to Mr. Westcombe and Mrs. Lovelace, and also speak to Mr. Ritchie and do some mock interviews. So that really helped. And just honestly preparing for the questions, they're quite generic. Like I said, for example, for JP Morgan, it was why JP Morgan, why career apprenticeship, why London, what motivates you to do this apprenticeship, what do you think, what skills do you have to complete this apprenticeship, stuff like that. Then the further stages may include assessment centres. So assessment centres are quite interesting as well. Depending on the firm you're applying to, you will have different things that you need to do. So I'm going to use JP Morgan again as an example. For my assessment centre, I had one interview with an apprentice who just finished someone who just finished their apprenticeship with them. Then a group activity with 4 other people where they give you each a piece of information and you have to work together to try solve a problem that they give you. And usually you'd have 2 assessors looking at you to see how you guys are communicating as individuals, which is quite interesting as well, quite an interesting way of testing. And then my third interview was my third task was another interview with someone who's slightly more senior within JP Morgan. So yeah, another really sort of interesting way of testing. And like I said before, you can prepare for these interviews by speaking to Mr. Westcombe or Mrs. Lovelace, or even reaching out to people who've done it before and asking for their advice. Next slide, please, sir. So here are just a few of the apprenticeships that I've applied for. We've got a lot of banking finance apprenticeships there, as you can tell. I'd probably advise to apply for as many as you can, because it's quite, competitive across the country, even though it's a relatively new concept and not many people really see an apprenticeship at the same level as university. But I believe there's so much that an apprenticeship has to offer that uni may not have to offer. So those are only a few of the ones that I've applied for. And most of them have numerous stages that you have to go through to get through. Next one. So here are my top tips. So obviously pick the apprenticeship that you think you'll enjoy the most. It's 4 years. It's not easy. They will get you to work hard hours because they're paying you. Research the firms you're applying for early. It's crucial to have the background knowledge in the firm, because I'm almost certain that the first question they'll ask you in any sort of interview will be why you want to join the company and stuff like that. So make sure you keep on top of the news and sort of firm news, and at the same time try and study the company values, because showing that you have their values align with yours kind of says to them that, you know, I'm really interested in this firm and I really want to join. Secondly, ask questions to your interviewer. A lot of people don't ask questions because they think that, you know, they're gonna disrupt the flow of the interview, but actually, from what I've heard, the advice that I've heard is that the interviewer wants you to ask them the questions. So beforehand, have some questions lined up. They can be different, they can be the same depending on which firm you want to go for, but try keep it on topic. So for example, my question was, how do you think the role of AI will play within the financial industry, and in particular within JP Morgan's operations? This kind of shows to the interviewer that you're actually interested in how the firm works and the dimensions about the sector you're applying for. So definitely do that. Thirdly, this sounds like a bit of an obvious one, but do actually smile. If you smile, it just genuinely shows the interviewer that you're interested and you want to get involved with this firm. If you're just going to be sulking and, you know, not smiling, it shows them that you really can't be bothered, and you know, they won't take you seriously. They'll carry on the interview, but they'll put a big cross against your name and you won't get the place. It can really make or break an offer, to be honest with you. But yeah, lastly, be yourself. Don't be pretentious. Company recruiters, they've been in the game for a while now. They'll all have been in the game for a while, so you know, they can easily identify when someone's trying to be someone they aren't. It's important to be authentic. Don't copy someone else. Just be yourself. Honestly, they're just trying to get to know you. They know that that's tough. Most of you will be 17 or maybe 18 at the time when you're applying. So they're not expecting you to be A-class candidates, but at the same time, do your best and know your stuff. That's really important. Avoid kind of waffling to the interviewers during questions, and just be clear and concise about your opinions. And if they ask you questions, have the evidence to back it up. If your statements that you said, you know, you can use quantitative data for, and that they can check it, make sure you know your stuff. It's really important. Next slide, please, sir. So any questions so far?
Yes, we're done. Thank you, Rohan. Thank you, Rohan. Thank you, Kate, and thank you, David. Any questions so far? We're over halfway through the presentation. The majority have been on apprenticeship schemes, as you've heard. Any questions so far on apprenticeship schemes? Can't see anything in the chat box. Some previous questions we had through was resources identifying degree apprenticeships, and David covered that, and we'll send the links out, all those hyperlinks out to those different places. There is no one-stop shop. I will be showing a little bit about Unifrog on that later, which I think is a really good resource for doing some research on degree apprenticeships. So, support for applying, Rohan just touched on that as well. Degree apprenticeship events, David mentioned the different shows that are available. We have taken students to different ones before, but I think the research, really, the independent research that students do are more helpful than going to mass career events. It all depends on what stage I think somebody is at in terms of their knowledge and understanding, and the different events happen at different times of the year, as you can see. So I would recommend going to them, the different skills shows, different careers events, to see what there is available. And then the different dates and processes all happen at different times, and that's where keeping a spreadsheet. The most successful candidates we've had before who have got onto degree apprenticeships have kept a real log on a spreadsheet, and I know Rohan's got a spreadsheet as well of all of his degree apprenticeships. And so again, starting early and keeping that all the information all logged and cleared about when they open and when they close and the different processes available is really, really important. One question in from one student: what evidence could you use to back up your statements, hypothetical scenarios? And what are the cons? That's one for you, please, Rohan. I think that one.
Yeah.
So, sorry, one sec. Evidence to back up your statement. So, in terms of hypothetical scenarios, you've just got to write down a bunch of, situations you've been in that sound credible. There's no point making them up because, again, it's very easy to sniff out which ones are real and which ones are not. And you've got to basically tell a story to them. Just be clear and concise with your stories, but at the same time, it's got to make sense and it's got to flow. So, yeah, evidence-wise, by statements, I meant, if you wanted to quote something that JP Morgan have done. So, for example, the carbon transition scheme, I researched that before going into my interviews, and because I'm interested in asset management and sustainable growth, I was able to talk about that through my research.
Right, thank you.
Can I say something on that one?
Kate, yes.
Sorry, just as well, sort of don't lie on your CV or any applications doing this. Don't you need to, they will ask you to back up your evidence of work experience and things that you're talking about. So you don't want to get caught in any of those interviews. And Rohan as well, could you just quickly just tell everybody when you started and you're still going, aren't you, with the process at the moment?
Yeah, so again, I'm going to use JP Morgan because that's the one I really want. I think they do their degree apprenticeship with Exeter. So I applied to JP Morgan in October, right at the end of October. So the applications open quite early, depending on where you're applying to. So Bournemouth, I think, opened slightly earlier, but I applied to the London one, which was late October. So I sent my CV in, and they invited me to a phone interview in November. So they emailed me to say, congratulations, we've looked at your CV. We want you to take you on to the next stage. They gave me a phone interview and asked me questions. This comes from the University of Exeter, by the way, not JP Morgan themselves. They ask you, like, why do you want to join JP Morgan? What do you know about the course? Tell us a bit about yourself. Generic questions like those. Then they let me know that I got through that round and I passed that round, and they invited me to a virtual assessment center. So with the virtual assessment center, it's slightly tougher because you don't actually, you can't read people's body language. So, it's slightly more different. Whereas in person, communication be a bit easier as well during the tasks. And it just feels a bit more personable because with interviews, if you run out of time, you can't even say thank you to the interviewer for their time and to interview. It's just you go straight off. So that's a bit of a tougher sort of way to look at it. So that was in January. Then a couple of days ago, I got an email saying that I'd passed the assessment center stage and I've got to the last round of the JP Morgan degree apprenticeship scheme. So on the 20th of February, I'm going into the JP Morgan head offices in Canary Wharf to attend an insight evening and speak to the managers and senior directors there. So it's quite a long process. It started in October and it's going to finish sort of in, I think, early March, late February, early March is when they were saying. And to be honest with you, it varies depending on what apprenticeship you applied for, because some of, like, Lloyd's only opened the other day, about a couple of weeks ago, but whereas JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs have opened, they opened in October and September. So yeah, it really just depends when they open and whether you can get through the rounds. It's a long process.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Rohan. There's a few more questions that have come through. I'm going to move on to the next section now, though, which is about the university route and the UCAS support that we help students with at CGS, and we'll answer some of these other questions that have come through later on. There's only a few slides on this, but there's quite a lot of detail that I'd like to go through. So, in terms of the university route, the UCAS application is a one-stop shop for all applicants who want to go to a university within the UK, and we are fully supporting students in all of that application as well. because it's a centralised system. It's quite a straightforward, straightforward process. But in order to get to deciding where to go, one of the things, the thing I talk about the most importantly is deciding on the course. And one of the ways to do that is obviously to do lots of research and find what people are interested in. Hilary touched on that today about the different varieties of degree courses that are available to applicants on all sorts of topics. And I always go back to the course is the most important thing. Paying tuition fees for the course, what are you going to get from it? What are you going to gain from it? Where is it potentially going to take you if you are thinking that far ahead, which I do think students need to think about that, and I'll come back to that when I talk about the Complete University Guide. So open days are a mixture of both virtual and in person. I always recommend students go to the actual university to find out the difference of whether or not they're like a city university or a campus university, to really get a feel for it. And as students know, going to different schools and trying to find out which school is right for you, it's exactly the same thing as a university, exactly the same thing as the degree apprenticeship scheme though as well, is you're finding whether or not you feel like you fit in that particular place as well. So attending open days, most of them do take place on Saturdays. If they do take place during the school day, then please do fill out a leave of absence request form on the website and that will be granted. Really important to sign up for things like taster days and lectures. I know that there are students out there who have no idea what they want to do, and that is also very, very normal. So one of the things when I look at the Unifog site with you a little bit later on in this presentation is trying to find out what interests they have and what skills they have and what areas and topics they are interested in. And again, my advice would be just to go to some university open days, sign up for them to get a feel to see what does feel right for that as well. One of the ways around that as well, I talk to students as well at the moment. I'm seeing all the students in year 12 reviewing how year 12 has gone so far, looking at the enrichment that they are doing, and then talking about things like massive open online courses, the extra reading that they're doing, using the know-how library on Unifog, because going to university is not like going to school, and they need to be really fully independent learning and understanding the process is behind the skills that they will need to have and possess in order to be successful at university. So completing things like MOOCs and doing wider reading will be something that I would expect a student to be doing at A-level in order to be able to continue that process at university as well. So that's that top bit there, those first two bullet points. Applications. UCAS opens about May, June time, but we cannot send applications off until September. My advice every single year is to apply early in September, regardless of what it is you want to apply for. If you know that you want to apply for a particular university for a particular course, then just apply, because the sooner you've got the UCAS application in, it is out of your head and off of your shoulders, and you can concentrate again on your A-levels and on your studies. One of the changes to the system has been that you can only apply to a maximum of 5 universities, but you can now apply to one of them at a time. You don't need to complete all 5 when you send it off straight away. You can add up to a maximum of 5 at any stage between September and the end of January 2025, as it will be for these applicants. So my advice, apply in very early on in September, just so it's all the applications off. If you know for sure you've got a particular university, a particular course that you want to apply for, then get that done. The bullet point about the Complete University Guide and Discover Uni, I won't click on it to show you these sites, but I would strongly recommend both of these sites. The Discover Uni one has lots of really helpful information and videos on that are really student-friendly, user-friendly. It's a bit like the Student Room as well. It's another good site. Discover Uni is a bit more professional, I suppose, in that sense. And it has links to the Open Days website in that first one as well, which has all of the open days at all universities on. And it's really also built up its degree apprenticeship stuff as well. That's the Discover Uni. The Complete University Guide is one of my favourite, if I'm allowed to have one, websites that I take students to and show. It's probably one more for parents, although most of the kids I show do appreciate it. It ranks in terms of league tables universities. Now, the reason why I do that is because you have to type the course in. I show them by course, and then it shows you the top ranked universities for that particular course. That might not be Russell Group. It could be absolutely any university ranked on what their particular course is rated for. And then across the top of that, you can then filter depending upon entrance requirements, or the last one, which is always my favorite one, graduate prospects. Because my feeling is that you're going to go and do a course in a particular subject, you're paying for that privilege. Where is that taking you? So the graduate prospect one really changes the rank order of where those courses are. So again, it's a really good one, the Complete University Guide. And most, if not all students that come to me, I always show them that one and how that one works. So I really recommend to play with that. It's a really good site. Then, after you have chosen this course and you've decided on the universities that you want to go to and you have visited them, so it feels, you know for sure that it feels right for you, then you've got to complete the UCAS application form. I've got on there by December 2024. As I've said already, I would try to do it in September/October, definitely by October half term. It is a straightforward form. I supply the students with all the information that they need in order to fill it out. A little bit like Rohan has mentioned, there are particular things that they have to put in terms of information that parents might need to supply, but it is really a straightforward form and application. We check it in school as well, and then we will submit it onto, so when you pay and send, it comes to us at school, we do lots of final checks, and then we will submit it, hopefully, as I say, by December 2024. You then get to choose a firm and insurance place. So of the 5, and I always say try to use a maximum of 5 if you can, because it gives you options. They should be spread out with 2 aspirational, 1 or 2 aspirational, 2 that are solid, and then 1 or 2 that are backup. Obviously, I know my numbers are a little mixed up there. It all depends on what you're trying to apply for and where students feel that their grades are going to be at the end. So again, it's about making sure you've got a range of different grades or points available to be able to ensure that you've got a firm and insurance. The firm choice is always the one that's got to be higher than the insurance choice. So come results day, universities get A-level grades way before we do at school, and they will have filtered through all of the choices and all the people that they want to get by the firm and then their insurance choices. That's a brief summary of that UCAS process. So in terms of the route ahead for students, there are loads and loads of higher education institutions out there and loads of courses, which are filtering that down into one particular or five courses or 5 universities. It is really, really difficult. And that's where conversations need to be started all the way through school. So that's not the same for everybody. And our MedSoc Society meet regularly in year 12. I know that the vets and the dentists go to that as well. There's a link there to the one of the medicine sites as well, which tells us all the information about the UCAT entrance exams as well. If you are applying for medicine, veterinary science, and dentistry, then that application has to be in by the 15th of September to school, so we can process it, because UCAS have an early deadline of October the 15th. You also have to do university admissions tests, which I'll come back to in a second. So anyone applying for medicine, veterinary science, or dentistry, as well as anyone who wants to apply to Oxford or Cambridge, you can only apply one, you can't apply to both. They also have to have their application in by the 15th of September, because then we can check very, very carefully all the applications before we submit them, way before the October the 15th deadline. Those people who are going to consider those particular courses or those particular universities will also have to check out the university admissions test, the UATs. So there are lots of entry requirements in terms of UCAT or BMAT, or different colleges and different courses at Oxford and Cambridge have different university admissions tests that they require. Some do, some don't. So again, all that information, there is links to that as well. Also, every year we have students who might want to apply to conservatoire, most of them music conservatoires, but there's also the dance and the drama ones as well, or the acting schools. And again, some of those are through UCAS, some of them are independent applications. Again, having a spreadsheet, knowing what kind of courses, where you have to apply and which ones you want to apply to is really, really helpful. And if there is anybody who wants to do that, then I always sit down and individually talk to them as well about the different places that they can apply. So that's sort of some of these specialist applications there for UCAS. Every year we have different universities have different are popular for us. Nottingham, Birmingham are always up there, the top 2, and they have been for quite a few years. When you go and visit them, you perhaps will see why a lot of our CGS alumni went there. One year we had over 21 students going to Birmingham. It really was like, yeah, bizarre. But you can also see Nottingham Trent as well is high up there. Some of them are Russell Group, some of them aren't. And again, it's all down to courses and what people want to go and study and where. You can also see here as well that we have quite a few students going on to universities around the globe. We've got one student in this year to go to Hong Kong. We've had people in the past go to Princeton and Michigan, quite a few every year as well, go to European universities. And again, there's lots of different hoops to jump through for those different applications, especially for the US. But again, we've got the lovely Mrs. Waring School who helps support those US applications, and the European ones are slightly different in terms of applications. There's no central system. You apply independently to each particular school that you want to apply for. Personal statement. So most people, students, maybe parents as well, worry about the personal statement. I can tell you now it is not changing for this cohort. So the students are still required to write up to a maximum of 4,000 lines and 4,000 characters and 47 lines. Apologies. 47 lines and 4,000 characters for a personal statement. It's about a side of A4 typed. It hasn't changed this year. The references have changed, but not the personal statement. So students have to write about why they are interested in the course, what has motivated them, what enrichment activities that they have done. So when I'm talking to students about wider reading, about MOOCs, about the volunteering that they have done, about whether or not they're doing young enterprise, whether or not they're doing D&B, whether or not they're mentoring somebody, whether or not they're doing an EPQ, whether or not they're doing work experience and what they've done and what skills, what transferable skills they have got beyond that of just having A-levels and GCSEs. And that's that enrichment part really fits into the UCAS personal statement, as well as everything that Rohan has already mentioned in terms of applying to university. These will be drafted on Unifrog personal statements because all tutors and teachers in school have access to Unifrog. It's a great drafting system, and there's lots of helpful videos on that as well. All universities and UCAS itself have lots of how-to guides and advice and guidance on that. The structure that I just showed you previously really is quite a straightforward structure, and we'll be talking to students about that from about May onwards, about what it is they need to be doing in order to complete that as well. So finally for me, the help and support and advice. As I say, I have been starting to meet Year 12s, reviewing how Year 12 has gone so far and also what their future plans are. Those conversations will continue now until they leave in Year 13. If they want to, they can go and see Mrs. Lovelace or David Ritchie. They can also will be meeting with Mrs. Griffin, our in-house UCAS coordinator, after half term to start the ball rolling about making sure they've got their spreadsheets and information in order about what they want to do and how they want to do it, especially if they are going to be an early entrant as well. So there's lots of help and support and advice and guidance available to students. If somebody wants to meet with me or any one of us, then it's really important they just come and pop along or send us an email and we can make those meetings take place. I'm going to hand over to Rohan, who's just going to talk very quickly about the way in which he has used UCAS this year. Thank you, Rohan.
Yeah, so compared to the apprenticeship application process, it's quite straightforward. You'll have Mr. Westcombe and the UCAS, Miss Griffin, UCAS coordinator with you all the way, to be honest with you. There's 3 stages. So to start off with, you'll pick your 5 universities, or as Mr. Westcombe said, however many universities you want to apply to at a time, and what course you want to do. A bit of advice is genuinely pick the course you want to do, because like I said before, it's 3 or 4 or however many years you're going to do it for. It's quite a long time and you are paying for it, so you may as well get the best out of your money by doing something you actually want to do. But at the same time, I'd advise you pick a degree that kind of aligns with your career prospects. And if you don't know what you want to do at the moment, that's absolutely fine. But try sort of get an idea of what you want to do. Me personally, like Mr. Westcombe mentioned before, I created a spreadsheet for my degree apprenticeships and my universities. So I had a list of 20 universities that I was interested in, and the course that I want to do is economics and finance. So I'd have the ranking compared to other universities, my grade requirements that I needed, contextual offer requirements, and the teaching excellence framework as well. So I'd advise a lot of year 12 students to just do that if you want to really get organized with it. Your personal statement. So I started my personal statement in September. You can start slightly earlier. Obviously, you're not allowed to apply until September. So what I'd advise is in the summer of year 12, before you join year 13, is maybe just write down a couple of things about yourself that you'd like to include, and just get cracking on with it early, because there's no point leaving it to the last minute. You know, Mr. Westcombe does get busy, and you know, it's just better to get on top of it from the start. In terms of what you should actually put in there, try put stuff about what you've done to make it seem like you're actually interested in the course and you want to study at the university. Like for example, I read loads of books to do with economics, finance, and sustainable growth, and I put that in my personal statement. At the same time, I put in the essay competitions that I'd done and the work experience that I'd done, which is kind of helpful. So Mr. Westcombe will go through it once you guys get to that point, but there is a structure to the personal statement. And whilst it does say personal at the front, you only really spend about maybe 25% of it actually speaking about your own sort of extracurricular activities, and the rest of it's mainly academic. It took me 6 or 7 drafts to fully perfect that, you know, to what I thought was the best I could produce for my specific course. And I got Mr. Westcombe to look at it. I got my subject teacher to look at it, and other students who'd gone through the process already and at the universities that I want to go to. At the same time, I showed it to an industry professional, which I don't know how helpful that really was, but he kind of told me what to do to kind of catch the eye of the university professors and the admissions officers for the specific course. And yeah, just really keep on top of it and get some advice from Mr. Westcombe. It will take you quite a long time. You can't really do it in one sitting, because, you know, you'll make grammatical errors, and at the same time you may want to change things to make it flow better, which Mr. Westcombe will definitely help you with. So yeah, next slide please, sir. So this is one thing I wish I knew in year 12. Don't wait for things to happen. Get things done as soon as possible. Like I mentioned in the last slide with personal statements, doesn't only apply to universities and apprenticeships, but generally everything you do at school. So no one's going to do the work for you. You've got to do it yourself. Just take it on the chin. You know, if something you really don't enjoy, but it's, you know, urgent and you have to get it done, just do it. There's no point, you know, leaving it till next week or doing it tomorrow. Just do it there and then. There are deadlines for a reason, so make sure you can meet them as soon as you can without jeopardizing the quality of your work. It's always quality over quantity. It's really important that, you know, you put your 100% into everything you do, and get advice. Ask for help if you need help. There's a couple of pieces of advice in there, to be honest with you, but yeah, just get things done, be efficient. Getting things done as soon as possible can help with your time management as well, which is a really important thing. And yeah, be as efficient as you can.
Thank you, Rohan. There's a few questions come in on the chat about university. If you would like to put them in there now, so we're nearing the end of tonight's presentation. If you'd like to put them in the chat box, I will answer them. I'm going to hand over to Kate for this next section. Thanks, Kate.
Oh, thank you. So I just want to say that we're here as a part of the sixth form team as well. That, you know, everyone has their own pathway, so we're here to support the students in whatever way that pathway that they're looking at and would like to discuss. David is in pretty much nearly every Thursday. He offers free, impartial, independent careers advice. So if there's plenty of students that probably don't know what they're thinking about, what they'd like to do, so encourage you to contact us and we can get you an appointment with David. There's also the Morrisby online assessment. So if any of you didn't take that in year 11, this is available. You can contact me again. I can give you a link and you can take that. If there's anything you would like to follow up about that, again, that can be followed up with David from a more in-depth conversation as to where those results can lead to. We are going to make sure that all year 12s have had a meeting in the small groups of about 6 with David by the end of this term. Students that were new to CGS had this last term, so that we made sure that they understood what we offer here at CGS as part of our careers programme. But all the rest of the students will make sure that they have had this so that they understand all the various pathways and options by the end of this term. That can then be followed up by individual support, as I said, so please do contact us. We offer any support for CV writing, interviews. For Rohan, for example, we had a parent who's an HR manager in a bank who has done interviews for degree apprenticeships as well as graduate schemes. So he's been extremely useful for that. And we obviously offer interview practice support as well. Mr. Westcombe and myself are constantly, you'll see some shots there on the screen, sending out emails to students all the time about virtual and in-person events, workshops, any opportunities for work experience and so on. So please do keep an eye on all of those emails, delete the ones that we know aren't of interest to you because they're sent to the whole year group, but make the most of some of those opportunities that are there. If you have any questions, do come and ask and we can support in any queries that you have. We have a fantastic alumni network. As you know, we've been getting a lot of them in for talks. They're very accommodating to support any questions about pathways, about careers. So again, please just ask. Our careers office is opposite S8 for anybody who hasn't visited us so far. The door is always open, so please do come and see us. Also on the next slide, you will see that part of our programme is to make sure we offer as many varied talks and pathways. We have asked students, people come to us and ask a lot of the time that they want to meet someone or hear from someone. So we've offered everything from creative to humanities to computer science. And today you'll see this week we've had quite a busy week. We had Josh in today, who's a radio producer who studied a degree in journalism. Tomorrow we have got Martin Baker, who are the ejection seats, so that's for engineering, science, math students. And then on Thursday we have a solicitor firm coming in to talk for the Law Society. So we try to vary these talks, and we really would like to encourage students to come to as many of these just to explore different pathways. You never know what someone might say that might be of interest to you and could help make those decisions. I think that's, oh, and then also we haven't got a careers fair this year. We do that every other year. So I just want to highlight the Misbourne have offered for students to be able to go to their careers fair on the 27th of March between 6 and 8 p.m. Or there's also the Buck Skills Show. This is great, about 120 employers there. This is open to anybody in the evening between 4 till 8 p.m. It's free. You can book. I will send the information out to students. You could find your career and ask questions. And it's full of employers within Bucks. So there's lots of opportunities there from NHS right the way through to the creative sector of Pinewood Studios. So another great event to be able to attend in March. So yes, I'd highly recommend attending one of those.
Me too. Thanks, Kate. We are taking students on a UCAS fair in the UCAS convention fair, which also has degree apprenticeships available on it as well in April. I'll just put that in the box, and I know I've sent that message out. Last few things from me. I sent a link out to Unifrog. I just want to talk about the fact that it has a wealth of information there. I mentioned the fact that all of the presentations from the SX lectures, sixth form lectures, go onto there. It's got great tools for personality profiles, quiz profiles, careers profiles. You've seen the video that Unifrog have provided about where it's exploring what their interests are to successfully apply for their next steps, which is what this presentation is all about. If any students need help with that, then please do come and see one of us, and we will sit down with them to talk through all of that information. The Careers Library one, the apprenticeship one, is a really helpful one because you can put in your postcode. I always use the school postcode when I'm showing the students, and you can do a radius of what degree apprenticeships are open. Unifor claim to bring in all of the apprenticeship schemes that are available from the different sites that David's already mentioned, and I find it a really helpful tool actually. Again, you can use it through the UK University Search, works in a similar way. Loads of links to the institutions and videos and helpful guides. Briefly on this one about the special opportunities that are available there as well. And again, that is unique to each individual depending on what they want to do. And it helps students to understand what is available for them in terms of bursaries as well as scholarships as well. Any parent has any questions on Unifor, then I'm really happy to talk them through that as well. So hopefully this evening you have seen the different pathways that are available. We talked through the apprenticeship route, we talked through the UCAS route, we talked about the importance of Unifor, albeit briefly at the end there. The opportunity to do work experience and the enrichment that will bring students, both in terms of what it is they want to do for their career, what it is they want to do in terms of a degree apprenticeship or at university. When I speak to students, I talk about the importance of going to multiple work experience placements. So doing 2 to 3 days in a particular place and then 2 or 3 days somewhere else. And Kate and I sent a letter out about that. And I think the value of that is so high, to find out what it is you do like or what you don't like. And that can be just as valuable, finding out what you don't enjoy as well. Attending open days, mentioned that already. UCAS Hub is a great resource, and parents can log on to that themselves as well. It's different, it's not the same as the application. And then finally, for me, the importance of Year 12. So we are nearly halfway through the academic year. I mentioned that right at the very beginning. And it's all about students embedding the skills that they've got in order to be successful at A-level, and where that's going to then take them on to next. And I know it can seem very overwhelming and very difficult to make these decisions. We are all here to help. We are not mind readers. So if I always say this to students, any question is nothing like this. There's not even a silly question. Same to parents as well. If you've got any questions or any concerns about anything, please do get in touch. We will get back to you eventually. But thank you very much for listening. And if anybody has got any questions, then please do type them into the text box. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, David. And special thanks to Rohan for joining us this evening as well. I really appreciate your advice and guidance from all of you. Thank you.